All of the answers are in the relationship, are in knowing who you are, what you hold, and who you are to them. It is literally relationship and dialogue. And that's why love letters as a metaphor makes so much sense to me. I don't know, does it make sense to you? Hi, I'm Joey Youngjun Liu, and this is With Roots. In this podcast, I explore my wonderings with you about who we need to become to shift paradigms and sustain a healthy world, to make meaning of this human experience we share, with roots growing from so many places, waiting for us to explore, nurture, and reclaim. Ready? Let's go. I started talking about this idea of my work being a love letter to my people pretty early on when I started posting on my Instagram. And it was just a phrase that flowed really naturally for me. I think it was a simple post, a picture of my young self with my curly, frizzy hair, and just talking about how I'm not that much different from who I was as a kid, just this wild dreamer, someone with so much optimism and love for humanity, and didn't fit into mainstream boxes and just refused to believe a lot of the agendas and propaganda that was being pushed on me from a very early age by dominant societies that wanted to limit me. And as I was talking about myself in my story, I just wrote this phrase: my work is a love letter to the misfits, to the dreamers, to the sensitive souls, to the people who were told you're too much. And that language made it on my About Me page on my website, and it's been a recurring theme and motif throughout my work. It just emerges very truthfully and very spontaneously often as I sit down to create for my people. And I had to do a little bit of digging into my own process as I was getting prepared to teach people how to write and write to their audiences. And I started to come into deeper understanding of how much what I create is relational and dialogical, because I can see the person I'm writing to so clearly. And you heard me in the last episode, if you tuned into that one, talk about my classroom days with so much emotion. For sure, it was easier when I was working in real life spaces to see somebody's face and to talk to them and to be in relationship with them in that way, and to adjust and refine and offer my craft and my practice to living, breathing humans. And that can become somewhat obscure to you when you are working online. I know it felt that way for me for a while, but when I would feel out of touch, I would just go to that place of tapping into real people that I knew I wanted to talk to. I knew that if they heard what I had to say, it would make a difference. And so it often started with the people that were in my communities, my students, maybe now a decade later, as adults navigating their own context and still thinking about how can I honor my voice and know my voice and trust my voice. And the more that I worked with one-on-one clients too, I could also hold their face and their story very much in front of my eyes as I was sitting down to write. And so the voice that emerged when I'm creating what would be an Instagram carousel or a page for my website or a description page for one of my offerings, my curriculum, it was never created in a vacuum. I never had to solve for who's going to want to read this. That was not really a question. I mean, sometimes it was thrown at me early on when I got into the business space of, it's posed a lot in marketing, like, who will want this? Who are you talking to? And it's almost like design first, and then you try to figure out who wants your thing. And that can be a very confusing and disorienting process, versus my process, informed by my decades of teaching real humans, was I'm pretty sure that I am the teacher for this group of humans. And because I know those humans so deeply and intimately, I know what they need, sometimes better than they know themselves. And because I'm trained in this practice of pedagogy and curriculum design, I can craft solutions for them. And then my job is just to communicate it to them. So it removed a lot of that confusion in terms of who am I talking to? Who am I creating for? What am I even creating? Because that is all super clear when you know who it is that you're working with. I say it and it sounds so simple, but it really is. I wanted to backtrack. I touched on when I was in the classroom space, I knew who I was for. And this is an important point too. So similar to how I mentioned that in my post, my work is a love letter to the misfits, to the sensitive souls, to the people who refuse to give up hope. It was no different in the classroom. You go onto a public high school and it's this amazing cross-section of so many different identities, so many different groups of people. And while each individual is uniquely them, in general in society, you can start to find people grouping together into affinity groups centered around shared lived experiences, shared identities, shared interests and values. And I just always knew that I was a teacher for the misfits. And if that word feels demeaning or triggering in any way, please understand where I'm coming from. I literally mean it how it means, misfit. We are humans who don't fit into the more status quo boxes of society. So not your ASB kid or your honors kid, where some of those students might have parts of their identity that are more outlying and more marginalized for sure. What might distinguish some of the choices and the affinities that a student drawn to those spaces or those program tracks might have is that they are able to succeed in a framework or in a pathway that is designed by what the mainstream already has in place. And I was clear that it was not my ministry to teach them. I've always been a teacher for misfits. I've always been a teacher that has to ask the question, if this group of humans doesn't belong, then what does it look like to make spaces of belonging for them? If what exists in these structures doesn't work for this group of humans because they have these specific needs or they carry these stories and lived experiences and that shapes how they move through the world in these ways, how can we design experiences for them, learning spaces for them, communities for them that fit and serve them and don't harm them? And I knew that that was my ministry because those kids were me. I didn't fit. My story was one that nobody could ever relate to growing up. And I'd never even been to school. I never went to K-12 education. So I definitely didn't fit in those mainstream boxes. And because of my third culture, multiracial, multilingual, growing up with complex traumas, neurodivergent, so many intersections of my identities and my stories and my experiences meant that I am not able to fit into mainstream boxes because I understand that from the inside out. I am of most service. I am of best service to those who share those experiences of not fitting in, of seeking belonging where mainstream spaces can't offer it. So knowing who you are, knowing what your life has shaped you to now hold, knowing what you've overcome and what you've metabolized and crystallized and how you survive those moments and how you then turn those into tools to keep you going. And now you can pass it on to those who are also struggling with those same gaps and those same needs. It makes it so clear who you are for and what you are here to do. So your body of work, the location of your work, isn't so confusing anymore. And knowing that means you can now play around with articulating it with a lot more flow, a lot more ease, a lot more creative license, because you know what's true. And now it's just a matter of, how do I want to get this message across to who I'm talking to? and I know who I'm talking to. So the answer to the question, how do I want to get this across, is also informed by who that person is. Because if I know that who I'm talking to likes to hear the message with some humor, I'm going to kiki with them. If I know who I'm talking to gets really activated and lit up when you deliver a emotionally charged motivational message, that's how I'm going to talk to them. That's what they need, that fire lit underneath them. That's what they need to hear today. So that's how I'm going to deliver the message. All of the answers are in the relationship. All of the answers are in knowing who you are, what you hold, and who you are to them. And what you hold, what it does for them. And who those people are. It is literally relationship and dialogue. And that's why love letters as a metaphor makes so much sense to me. I don't know. Does it make sense to you? Make your body of work a love letter to your people. That's literally it. Every word you publish, everything you create. If you're a songwriter, write the song that's a love letter to the people who feel like, oh my gosh, there's somebody out there that gets me when they hear your song. Make the course that elicits the same reaction in the person. Show up, not just so that you can get attention. Show up to be evidence to those specific people looking for proof that you exist. Because if you exist, having lived through what you lived through and being who you are with your identities, and now you're showing up telling me you did this and you're doing this now and you can experience life like this and you're alive and you're well and you hold some of the answers to the questions I've been asking, why would you not show up and offer that moment of evidence to those people? What would it have meant to you back then when you were seeking the answer, when you were seeking evidence that somebody could exist like that, a few steps down the road from you, living out the truth of what you are dreaming of, and you just wonder every night you go to bed, is it possible? Is it worth risking it all to go after? What would it have meant to you to see somebody existing in that way and saying, yes, it's more than possible, and I need you to come with me on this path? Your gifts are needed too. Your knowledge is needed too. Your voice is very much needed too. Let's go. Here's my story. Here's my steps. Take what you can from it. I hope it guides you. I hope it makes your path a little easier. And guess what? In all the loneliness of your wondering, how am I going to become that person and do that thing? Maybe here's a way that you don't have to be so lonely anymore, because I'm here. We can connect on this. We can do our parallel journeys of becoming and creating and paradigm shifting together. So that's what it means to me to make your body of work a love letter to your people. And I don't say that in a metaphor. It's for sure metaphorical, but I don't mean that it's a metaphor without reality behind it. And the reality is the relationships that you have with the people that you are existing for. Again, if you are struggling to know what your work in this lifetime is meant to be, I think that struggle is just pointing you to examine, where do I need to get clearer about who and what I'm in relationship to? Who are the people that I serve with this unique life, with these unique gifts, with these unique desires, with these identities? And similarly, start to inquire about the relationship you have to yourself, to those stories, to those gifts. How much are you willing to sit with seeing your gifts for what they are and what they want to be and what they want to become when they're channeled through you? I know that's a little bit tender, because it means that once you see it, you can't unsee it. And then it will feel like more responsibility, because I know you're a sensitive soul and I know you have big dreams, and I know that clarity means you're moving yourself closer to action. And I know that taking action can feel scary and risky, and it can feel like it will bring in more loneliness and more estrangement and more misunderstanding from everyone who comfortably exists in the boxes that were never designed for you. I get it. And I'm not here to tell you when to act or when to move. I'm just speaking to you because if you're like me, that nudge is probably not leaving you alone anyways. That dream is probably not going away every time you close your eyes. You see it on the back of your eyelids. And the questions walk with you every day about who you are here to be and what you're meant to do. And what does it all look like when it starts to emerge and actualize? And so if that's you, if you're like me, I'm just sharing from my story, my lived experience, that yeah, the questions can be uncomfortable and the knowing can be even more uncomfortable, because taking away some of the ambiguity means that we have to make real choices in how we're going to honor that knowing and take action. So I just want to offer, for what it's worth, I have been taking action and I'm still alive and I have no regrets. And just like when I was in the classroom, I feel like I am living out my deepest and fullest humanity and purpose. And it doesn't mean that there's not uncertainty in some ways and in some days, but I'll be honest, it's not much. Let me not pretend for the sake of relatability that I swim in confusion about who I am and what I'm here to do and what's next. I really don't. I really don't. I see things that I can't unsee about myself and about what I'm here to do. And maybe to people who haven't gone through that depth of inquiry, that sounds delusional, but I would just say, if you're curious, try it for yourself. Try going through that process of deep inquiry for yourself. There are actual answers and clarity. And here's the thing, we're sovereign creatures, so you can see it and you can say, no, I have seen my vision with utmost clarity and said no. I've said no for years and I have no regrets on that either. I've said no because I need more time to live a normal life. I have. I've said no because I'm not ready to outgrow certain friendships and spaces and versions of myself yet. I just want to dick around and have fun. I have known what's been meant for me, and I've still exercised my agency to receive the calling and then delay my action on it. And I offer this experience of mine to remind you that however you move through what's meant for you is okay. You are worthy no matter what you do, and that means that whatever you choose to do is a beautifully generous contribution to your living communities. And you're probably wondering, well, what makes me then a responsible community member, a responsible global citizen? And if you're asking those questions within yourself, I would say, I think you're in the right place and I know who I'm talking to. I tend to be in the company of people who care so, so deeply and are consumed with caring for this world and the people in it. And you don't need to be convinced to take up your responsibility. You need to feel safe in your choice to do so. You need to experience your own capacity, being able to hold your choice to do so and the path that will unfold for you, the path that you will co-create as you walk it. So my role here as a fellow sojourner and a mentor or teacher, if you choose to see me and relate to me in that way, is one of offering you the evidence with my story and my voice of saying there's not one perfect right way to do this. You can pick up your work, you can pick up your gifts, you can exercise your choice and agency, and then as you feel safe and you feel well supported and you feel your capacity and trust your capacity to take action, you can then lean in and you will be not only okay, you will be so enlivened, so met with the blessings and the actualizations of so much of what you are hoping for and praying for and visioning for right now. That's my testimony to you. And as a teacher, if you choose to relate to me in that way, I can also offer you some of the very tangible tools and frameworks and methodologies that have continuously served me, served many of my students when put to use to actualize these things that we're talking about, to expand our capacity, to create safety, to co-create more relational spaces where we can communicate our visions, communicate our offerings to our communities, to our people. That is how we as a species, as a living system nested within all the other living systems on this amazing, magnificent planet, that's how we've always survived and how we'll continue to survive. So it's not anything novel. It's not anything rocket science. I stand humbly upon the shoulders of many lineages, many elders and teachers who have poured into me and to whom I have the responsibility of passing on their good word to you whenever you're ready to receive it. So I'll leave you here just with the possibility. What starts to open up for you when I say, hey, have you ever thought about making your body of work a love letter to your people? Does anything start to budge, shift, open, shake loose? Because that's exciting. If you're feeling anything kind of moving right now, explore that. And if you want more support or structure to do this, I've got resources. So if you are curious in how you can dive a little bit deeper into this work, check out the course, Make Your Body of Work a Love Letter to Your People. And if that doesn't feel like the right range for you, there's plenty of smaller, more bite-sized and free offerings for you to get started in this work of self-inquiry, story work, and thinking about yourself and what you do in relational, caring, loving, paradigm shifting ways. And you can find all of that at drjoeyliu.com or linked below this episode. But I'll wrap this episode here. Excited to chat with you again soon. Lots more to share. So many more stories, more voices. I'll be bringing in a very dear guest in our next episode. So come back then. Take care of yourself. I'm rooting for you. We'll talk soon.